6 days to go until the first in the nation primary. We'll be heading up there after the show and broadcasting live from New Hampshire through Tuesday. Tonight, the Republicans' race is at least another man down. Rand Paul is suspending his campaign, cutting the GOP field to 10 candidates. You can only count to 9, right? Gilmore is the one you're forgetting. As of this taping, Rick Santorum is also expected to announce his campaign suspension tonight, which would bring us down to 9. That's single digits. But if you thought Donald Trump was going to walk away from his second-place Iowa finish quietly, you would be wrong. He sent out a series of tweets today accusing Cruz of fraud, stealing Iowa, by lying to and misleading voters, which, by the way, Cruz did. And Trump says that is why the Iowa polls were so wrong. Lucky for Trump, even if he can't get a redo in Iowa, which he will not, the caucuses don't seem to be affecting New Hampshire much at all. After the first full night of post-caucus polling, he's holding steady at 38% in New Hampshire. That's 24 points better than his closest competitor. And on the Democrat side, it's much the same, with Sanders holding onto a 29-point lead. You know, while we spent a ton of time discussing the establishment, non-establishment divide on the Republican side, there may be an even larger chasm of a different kind among the Democrats. Joining me now to discuss are Joan Vernacchi. She's a columnist with the Boston Globe. Hi, Joan. Nice to see you. Elsa See is the founder and CEO of Agora. It's a company whose mission is to bring democracy into the digital age with online town halls for all. Great to meet you. Peter Levine is Associate Dean of Research at Tufts Tisch College, where he also oversees something called CIRCLE, the Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement. Good to see all three of you. Anyone have any insight into the nullification strategy? It's fine to say no. Yes? No? Good. No. Let's move on. Fine. Okay, let me start with you, Joan, if I can. This poll is the one I can't get out of my mind. We'll pop it up here out of Iowa, these exit polls. And this is it breaks down in the Democratic side the vote for Clinton and Sanders based upon age. You can see 17 to 29, 70-point margin. Obama only had a 43-point margin in that same age group in 2008. Significant margin also 30 to 44 for Sanders. Then it starts to flip, and Clinton's got a pretty big margin, 65 plus, even though not in the same range. You saw him the other day. Was it in Keene, New Hampshire, you said? What's the appeal? Why, it's not appeal. What's the stratospheric appeal to young people?
Well, it was at a theater in Keene. It was packed with millennials, college kids, I think. And they were singing John Lennon's Revolution, and there was a guy strumming a guitar playing We Shall Overcome. So it was a weird convergence of the 60s and 2016. I think the appeal is just they believe in Bernie. They believe that this is a guy who they can trust, who's honest, that's telling them like it is. And that's really appealing to young people. There's just like an idealism that kind of seeps out of it. I think there's a question, can he deliver on all these promises and this agenda that he has, telling them free college tuition, single-payer health care, that it's just a matter of kind of snapping his fingers and making it happen. But it's a very appealing message.
Is it the kind of, I mean, economic insecurity, crushing college loans, we all know about it, in the range almost of the mortgage indebtedness of this country. A lot of these millennials lived through 2008, and that will it happen again? Is that what the connection to this curmudgeon-y old 74-year-old is? I mean, they're young enough to be his grandkids.
His strength in Iowa was college students, and actually they're a small proportion of millennials. 40% are not going to college at all. But his strength was college students, so I can believe that the college loan question was central.
You know, from what I understand about your organization, part of your message is you say that young people want direct access. Is that not part of the deal?
Absolutely.
They don't get it with Sanders. Sanders is not your traditional Iowa, New Hampshire campaigner. He's great on the massive crowds. He's not so great on the one-on-one schmoozing, coming to your kitchen, making you breakfast, that sort of stuff.
That statement is right if you use the old way of engaging. But technology is actually empowering Sanders to have this direct access to every single young voter. We work with an organization in New Hampshire to live stream multiple presidential town halls, and we have young people from all over the country watching the town hall and asking Sanders questions.
So it's a virtual engagement.
It's a virtual engagement, and technology is changing the game there.
If I had said to you 6 months ago, who's going to connect better with millennials, the 47-year-old Barack Obama in 2008 or the 74-year-old Bernie Sanders in 2016? You would have said Obama, big time, right?
Agnostic of technology, I would have said Obama. But the thing that we have seen on Agora is that there's all these grassroots organizing with Bernie supporters on our platform, just talking about issues they care about. And so they feel like their voices are being heard. And that's the thing about millennials. They want to be heard on this platform, and technology is helping them do that.
I'm sorry.
I sound really old now. now.
Please do.
But, you know, back in the old days, back in the old political days, you had to look someone in the eye, you had to shake their hand, you had to touch them. And I think it's interesting that millennials feel connected in a virtual way, and they're willing to just, you know, sit there in a theater, you know, hear his shtick, not get a chance to ask him questions in that venue, yet do it in this other kind of
Which
forum
is the
and another
intimate
kind of
connection
platform.
that we weren't used to, that you are.
And they saw intimacy in that kind of connection.
You know, the most amazing
That's
part,
sad.
we couldn't break down that 70% margin by gender, but obviously by definition, it also means he has to be leading Hillary Clinton amongst young women, or else he couldn't have a 70 vote margin. What is that about? I mean, is it this notion that, as Lena Dunham said in that New York Times story, in the Upper East Side, people are just, a lot of young women are just learning about how the Clintons treated, including Hillary Clinton, the accusers of her husband, Bill Clinton. Is that what it is? Is it that young women haven't lived through the kind of discrimination that people like Joan Vanocki have? What is it? What's the allure to the young woman? Don't they want a woman president?
I don't really have the data to speak for the women on our platform, but I think the greater appeal to this is that they find authenticity in being able to engage on these issues. And what we found on our platform is that millennials are very informed about issues. They're
And
willing
that's
to
much
challenge.
stronger than the gender connection there.
Exactly. And so they really focus on the issues itself, and they find that true connection.
What's
with the
your
two things.
analysis of that? The young
I don't
woman.
think. Well, that's a good question. I don't think that that Sanders is doing nearly as well as this conversation is suggesting. I mean, the reason he didn't get as much of a proportion of young voters as Obama is because it was only a two-person race. And to me, the thing that really stands out is that Hillary Clinton only got 4,000 or 5,000 young votes in Iowa. The turnout wasn't that great. It was 11% of young people voted in Iowa, as compared to
National polls, by the way, he's not doing quite as well as this exit poll. He's doing incredibly well amongst millennials.
Well, he certainly has a lead, but I think the comparison to Obama, I think Obama's.
Forget Obama. Just the
right.
fact that he's beaten her 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, whatever it is.
I'd just like to put the emphasis on how badly she's doing. I'm afraid to
Well,
say
let's say that. Is
Yeah.
it something she's doing wrong, or just, as we're hearing here, things that Bernie Sanders is doing right? Why is Hillary Clinton, forget all people, but young women, why is she not attracting in huge numbers like a lot of us incorrectly thought?
I think she has a hard time suggesting a positive vision at this moment because she knows she's up against a Republican Congress. And so when she thinks, what can I offer? She thinks not that much, and she's trying to have a positive vision, and it's hard to articulate that. And people, especially young people, but everybody votes for positive vision.
I
You know,
think it's more about trust, because the same polls that show him ahead with young people show her with this real trust gap. And she has this history. She's been around a long time. I don't think young women look back and remember, or they don't know about the struggles of the 60s and the 70s for working women
Right,
and professional
exactly.
women. So that's a piece of what you were connecting it to. And the things that have happened in her life now are seen through a very negative prism.
You know, one of the things I hypothesized last night, based on nothing, I should say, and I'll do it again right now,
Right.
that an older voter who's with Hillary Clinton is used to disappointment. And realistically speaking, even if they don't get their Hillary Clinton, if Bernie Sanders is their nominee, they'll probably go there, even if it's grudgingly. My sense it's a younger voter, an idealistic voter who's drawn to Bernie Sanders, like you said. If he wins here, goes to South Carolina, let's say, and gets crushed, all of a sudden it may start to crumble. Is that not possible? And particularly crumble if Hillary Clinton is the nominee. Does she capture these people?
She's really got to work on that.
By doing what? What does she do?
Because I think she's going to be the nominee, or it's
And what
quite
does she
likely.
do?
And so, well, part of it is direct outreach, is actually talking to them online, certainly. So outreach pays, so she's got to invest directly in talking to them. But I think part of it is the positive vision and some sense of forward motion in the next.
Do you think they're transferable? And do you think they may be, I don't know if scared away is the right word, but disappointed away
I'm
if
not sure
Sanders
Right.
implodes?
I think we look at millennials as a voting bloc, and when we divide the issues by gender in the same way that we'll deal with the rest of the voters, but I think there is a chasm between people who are idealistic, and these are the millennials. And so on our platform, the most talked about topic is about income inequality. And interestingly, Donald Trump actually made arguments about inequality that millennials find attractive too. So you can't just divide them by partisan line or gender line and say, oh, this is what millennials are.
So let me ask the obvious question. So if Bernie Sanders falters, do those people, I know, I don't mean it monolithically, is Donald Trump their second choice?
Well, I cannot predict that, but I think
But
from,
you think for some of them it
from
will
some
be?
of the millennial users on our platform, those who support, Republican candidates, we have people who support Rand Paul and, a lot of people supporting Donald Trump. And on the Democratic side, they support Bernie Sanders. So what we could say is that there might be some trend there, that we're not using the same way to analyze millennial voters the way that we did for the rest of the population.
I think if Bernie Sanders implodes, their hearts will be broken, and it will be really hard for Hillary to capture those votes unless and until people really focus on the issues. And, I mean, Donald Trump has stood for so many things. Well, again, so is Hillary Clinton. So I guess it's a, toss.
But you do think
coin
it's a,
toss,
what's
like in
your
Iowa.
point there? That they do go away, that they essentially engage and then they disengage? Is that where you're going?
I think some of the votes can be captured by, if Hillary Clinton is the nominee, some of them can be recaptured. But listen, when your heart's broken by a politician, it's hard to fall in love again, right?
So can we talk sometime about the days when there's no social media? We'll just have a drink or something?
George McGovern, right?
Great to meet you.
Thank you very
Peter,
much.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Great to
Thanks,
meet you
everybody.
as well.